Hey, everybody, welcome back to the High Performance Zone. Today, I have Aaron Big A Walker. Now, Aaron started the View from the Top, and he also started a mastermind called Iron Sharpens Iron. And we go deep into the heart, mind, and soul. What's important there? A couple of things he mentions in this podcast that I think are incredible. One is he says, success is about yourself. Significance is about others. So are you building a life of success and significance? And I think that's the key, is we want to be both. And then he also said this great comment. He said, there's no such thing as balance in life. In fact, you need to be way out of balance, but in the right places. And I think that's what's critical, in the right places. So we dive in deep here, go with Gucci and Big A as we talk about life and the pursuit of excellence and happiness. Ready? Hit it. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the High Performance Zone. Today, I am super honored to have Aaron Big A Walker, okay? And the Big A, Aaron, we're going to get into with us. Hey, Aaron, I love what's behind you right now. It says Iron Sharpens Iron. Why do you have that up? What does that mean? Glad to be here.
Yeah, that's our mastermind group. John, first of all, glad to be here, buddy. This is a real honor for me, so thank you for having me. But that's one of the opportunities that we provide at View from the Top. It's a mastermind. We have about 150 men in 16 groups, and we're in about 8 countries around the world, 3 different continents, and we're helping men become better versions of themselves. And so we called it Iron Sharpens Iron. If you know anything about scripture, it's Proverbs 27:17, as one man sharpens another, as iron sharpens iron. And you're like me, John, you like sparks to fly. And so that's what we're going to do today. So let's get into it.
Hey, there couldn't be any better, right? And I love that. I love Proverbs. I also love that we're going to sharpen each other. So let's go for it. Hey, we were just about to dive in a little bit on your background. And I said, whoa, Aaron, wait. All right, this is too good. So, let's hit it up again. Check me in, man. Give me a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll try not to talk about myself too much. I want to give some advice and wisdom to your listeners, but for context, you need to know a little bit about me. So I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I don't want to hear anything about the Southern drawl either, right? So we all got accents. God gave me this one, and so it is what it is. But 62 years I've been living in Nashville, Tennessee. Grew up a real poor kid, didn't have anything, wanted better. Started my first business when I was 18 years old. Went out, found a couple of guys with a lot of money because I didn't have any and I needed some to start a business. Yeah. John, I gave up 2/3 of the business in order to be a partner. So we went into this business and man, it was just unbelievable what transpired after that. Aaron, I was in the pawn shop business. We owned a pawn shop in Nashville, Tennessee, real high-end pawn shop, very large pawn shop, a lot of employees. It would have been somewhere you would have loved to have shopped. So
is that where you got the guitar of Red Foley?
I did. I sure did. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. On Red Foley's stage guitar. He was an icon back in the 50s, and I bought it from his estate when he passed away. Wow. But anyway, God really blessed that business. When I was 27 years old, I retired. I sold out to a Fortune 500. And my wife said, this is amazing. And I said, yeah, this is amazing. And it was for about 18 months. She woke me up one day from a nap and she said, listen, you've gained 50 pounds. You're getting in the bed in the middle of the day. This is not what I signed up for.
Wow.
And I said, what do you want me to do? And she said, I don't care. Get a job, start another company, do something. So I went back, bought the company that I worked with when I was a teenager. And we spent the next 10 years pouring gasoline on a fire, growing that business. We grew it, John, 4 times the size it was in a 10-year period.
Wow.
And I'll be honest
what was
with
that
you.
one, Aaron?
It was a pawn shop. It's the same thing.
Oh, again, so you had the
same business. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
A company called Cash America in Fort Worth, Texas, bought us out. They own about 1,200 stores. They're in 3 different countries around the world, but very, very sizable company. And they wanted to be in Nashville. And so when I got married 2 weeks out of high school, my wife graduated, we got married. She was broker than I was. And I said, listen, I'm broke as a convict. We don't have any money at all. And I said, we're going to do what Dave Ramsey teaches, live like no one else. So later we can live like no one else. And this was what we were doing when Dave Ramsey wasn't on the air yet. And so we poured all the money back into the company, and I opened multiple stores over those years, and then sold out to Cash America. Well, when
Hey,
I went
Aaron,
back,
let me just interrupt you for a second, because I think you're going to go to some really important stuff here. I was at a conference not too long ago. It was an insurance conference. Yeah, I was speaking there, and one of the other speakers was talking about actuarial life, how long people live. And he had this stat that said, if you retire, okay, and you don't have a purpose, that the actual actuarial tables will say that you have 3 years to live. I mean, you'll physically die. And then if your spouse were to die in between there, cut it in half. So those 18 months that you're talking about, life without a purpose is just, it's terrible. Right. And I'm so
John,
glad.
that's what was going on, is because I had been going so hard so many years. And then all of a sudden I was playing golf with 65-year-old guys, and I'm 27.
Wow.
And then they're beating me on top of that, which really made it bad. And so I said, you can't fish and hunt, but so much, right? I mean, you can't play golf, fish, hunt. Everybody's listening and saying, yeah, I would like to try that. Well, that's good. I enjoy doing that. But the point is, you do have to have a purpose. You've got to have a reason to get out of bed each and every day. And I didn't at the time.
Right.
So back to the story. Yeah. So we take this pawn shop to 4 times the size it was, and little tidbit of information along the way, and it ties in a few minutes. I was going to a Chamber of Commerce breakfast, and on my way by there, I passed it, and then I turned around, went back, and I said, I'm going to go on in. Well, it was one of the smartest moves of my life, going to that Chamber of Commerce breakfast. About 25 people there, had breakfast at Luby's Cafeteria in Madison, Tennessee, just north of Nashville. And there was a guy there speaking about teaching people to get out of debt. And it was pretty intriguing to me. And he said he was starting a radio show here in Nashville. And I introduced myself to him, invited him to our store, and he came and looked at it. And he said, why don't you advertise on my show? I said, I just met you 5 minutes ago. And he said, well, why don't you just give it a try? I said, I've never heard of you. I don't know who you are. I don't know anything about your business. And he said, I'll give you a week free if you'll try it. And I thought, well, I got nothing to lose. It's a local radio show. So I did. 3 days in, John, I called him and I said, listen, I don't know what you're selling. I don't know what you're doing, but I'm in. And he said, well, you'll have to sign an annual contract if we continue. And I went, 3 days ago, I didn't know you. Now I'm on your show. Now you want me to sign an annual contract. He said, that's the only way I'm going to do it. And so I signed an annual contract. That was my first experience with Dave Ramsey. And so Dave and I became very good friends, and I sponsored his show for the next 21 years. We sponsored Dave's show. Well, out of that became a very close friendship. And so I started with him in the very beginning. I went and did a devotion for Dave's team. When he first started, there were 3 people there, him and 2 employees. And we sat in the kitchen, and I did it around the table they eat lunch on. And so we've been together a long, long time.
Wait, how many years ago was that devotion?
Oh man, that was in the early 90s.
Wow.
The early 90s. Yeah. Right when he first started his show. And so anyway, I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit. I'm trying to keep you on a continuum. I said I was going to make this short, but when you're 62, it's hard to make anything, a short period of time. So
I just want to know, did you have more hair back then?
I did. I had beautiful hair. I had the Bee Gees, Barry Gibbs look back in the high school, the wings and the Elvis Presley sideburns and the mustache and the gold jewelry. I looked like I had a Mr. T starter set, that's what I look like. But
I love it.
But anyway, listen, back on a serious note. So what happened, John? This is a part where my story takes a really hard right turn.
Yeah.
I'm headed to the office. My life was good, like really good. Like I had a vacation home, beautiful home here, had all the stuff. 2 little girls that were precious. My life was perfect. Honestly, I worked 3 days a week. My partner worked the other 3 days, and we were cruising along, just loving life. August 1st, 2001, I was headed to the office, 7:30 in the morning, and a guy named Enrique was crossing the street in front of me, didn't see me, and I ran over and killed a pedestrian.
Wow.
Well, I want to tell you, man, at that moment, it was like slow motion. It was like I was watching a movie. And I was like, this couldn't have just happened. Well, it did. Enrique lived 3 days in the Vanderbilt trauma unit in Nashville, Tennessee. And they called me on a Saturday morning and they said, I'm sorry you didn't make it. Well, I went to my partner and I said, listen, I've been chasing money since I was 8 years old. I'm 40 at the time. And I said, I'm retiring. I'm hanging it up. I'm through. And so I sold him the business. He said, I don't have the money to pay you for the company. I said, I'll finance it for you over a 10-year period. This is what I'll sell my 50% interest for. We shook hands. It was a 10-minute conversation. And then we finished dinner. And that's the kind of relationship I had with my partner. And I took the next 5 years off. I didn't do anything for 5 years, kind of got my legs back under me, had my friends come around me. And this is a pivotal part of this interview, quite honestly, and it's where I want to kind of take us if I could.
Please.
At that time, I was in a really lonely place. Isolation is the enemy of excellence.
Yeah.
And when you're at the top, sometimes it's very lonely there and you don't have trusted advisors. You don't have counsel. You don't have people that you're willing to subject yourself to, and you're kind of isolated. Well, along comes Dave Ramsey at the end of Mercy Me concert here in Nashville. And we're friends. We've been doing business for years together. And he pulled me over to the side and he said, hey, Big A, he said, I want to talk to you about joining my mastermind group. And I said, Dave, I don't even know what a mastermind group is. And he said, just come to my office Wednesday morning and I'll introduce you to the 10 guys I've invited and we'll see if it works out for you. So I went home and I told Robin, and Robin goes, are you going to go? And I said, I don't really want to go. She said, why? I said, you know how Dave is. He's all up in your face and he's going to be yelling and hollering at me if he finds out I've got debt. And if I have a credit card, he may assassinate me on the spot. And she started laughing. She said, why don't you just go try it? So I went. Week after week, I'd go back and they were sharing intimate things. I mean, they were sharing, John, you've been married a long time. There were situations in relationships that they were exposing, and children that weren't behaving properly. And there were some guys that had cash flow problems. And I went home one day and I said, Robin, they're as screwed up as I am. I said, I think I found my people. And so we spent the next dozen years meeting every single Wednesday for an hour and a half in Dave's conference room. And it radically transformed my life. And see, what's cool about it is it came at a time where I was very vulnerable. Mm-hmm. I really needed a group of trusted advisors around me to help me, to walk with me through this journey. And they did week after week after week. And so, I went on then, had a construction company, and then I retired after that. And 12 years ago, I retired for the third and final time. My wife said, you're never going to retire. Started doing a little coaching one-on-one, fell in love with it. John Lee Dumas invited me to be his guest on Entrepreneur on Fire. And I immediately had 15 one-on-one clients sign up. And wow. I was like, I can't even coach this many people at one time. So I went to Robin and I said, listen, I'm going to start a mastermind. And she said, okay. And she goes, just one? I said, yeah, one mastermind. So I started a mastermind. And then Pat Flynn had me on Smart Passive Income, and I filled up 2 groups in a 30-minute interview. And I went to Robin. I said, I got to open 2 more groups. And she goes, here we go again. Like, how many times are we going to do this? And I said, Robin, I promise you, I'll just keep it right here. Well, I kind of fudged a little bit. And today we have 16 groups and we got members from all over the world. So I know it's a little longer introduction than you wanted, but now you've got a little context, John, for the rest of the interview.
Wow, absolutely. First off, I want to say thank you for that vulnerability and that openness and the lessons you learned. I got so many to ask you, but first off, what's your purpose today?
Helping ordinary men become extraordinary in all they do.
Nice. And you do that through the masterminds.
We do group coaching. We do individual coaching. We do mastermind, and we do live events. Wow.
So what does that look like if someone on my audience, and hopefully you get 15, we'll see.
Sure. Yeah, cool.
But what does it look like for a person who says, wow, that sounds interesting. What does it mean to be in a mastermind?
Well, first of all, let's define kind of what it is. A lot of people are new to this and they don't even know what that is. And I think people make it much harder than it really is. You can call it peer advisory group, board of directors, mastermind. Really all it is the collectiveness of people that align similarly in their worldview and align in their core values. And then you become extremely vulnerable and transparent and authentic in front of this small group. Now, this takes time. This is not something that you just walk right in and do. Most people are opposed to that. They want this facade. They want you to think they've got it all together, and they want you to think highly of them. And so what we do is we get in this group, and you start to realize that you're going to have trials in your life. You're going to have situations that you're confronted with where you have a difficult situation. Like right now, I've got a daughter currently that's in Vanderbilt Hospital. She's facing a life-threatening disease. Oh. And so we're dealing with that. Well, if I didn't have people around me currently, I wouldn't be able to go through that alone. I go through this horrible accident, right? And Robin and I have had challenges in our marriage. We've been married 43 years this coming June. And so it's worked out great, but it hasn't all been a straight trajectory. I've got two beautiful daughters, and they're amazing, but they haven't always been amazing. And we've had challenges to walk through. Well, here's the thing. I've never been a dad for the first time to some of these young girls, and I've never been a grandfather for the first time for some of my grandchildren. And I've never been at a place where I'm 43 years married, empty nest. And I need people walking alongside me that has maybe crossed this path before that can give me good insight. Here's the most important part, though. This is probably the most important thing I'm going to say on this interview. So listen up if you're not listening. The important part is that we ask for advice every single day to people with no context.
Right.
So a couple of weeks ago, I went to a coffee shop and met a guy, and we were talking, and I said, hey, Robin and I are thinking about buying a condo down in Florida. It's kind of cold in the winter in Nashville, and I think we want to spend the winters in South Florida. And I said, do you think it'd be a good idea? I was setting him up, John. I'm just going to be honest.
I was going to say, this is someone you just met.
Yeah. Well, it's somebody that I knew, but I didn't know intimately. I knew him. He knew me. Right. Okay. And so he wanted to meet with me. So I did. He was coming through Nashville. Yep. And he said, yeah, Big A, I think that'll be good. I said, well, this condo cost $1 million. And I think I want it. And he goes, yeah, I think you should. You've owned all these businesses, and I'm sure you can afford it. And yeah, I think it'd be good. Now, this is a smart businessman. This guy runs a big company. Right. And so I said, well, let me back up. I said, you've never met Robin. You have never met Brooke and Holly. You don't know any of my grandchildren. You don't know my past. You don't know my vision. You don't know my Achilles heel. You don't know my superpowers. You don't know my blind spots. And you sure don't know anything about my finances. He said, no, I don't. I said, you really can't help me, can you? He said, no, Big A, I really can't. And I tell you that story for this reason. We ask people every single day that don't know any of that information. They don't have the data. Right. And then we go out and implement what they tell us to do, and we fail miserably, and we wonder why it didn't work. Yeah. See, in these mastermind groups, we know you intimately. You metaphorically unrobe in front of us. We know everything about you, including your propensity, your vision, your goals, your ambition, your history, your finances. And now when you ask me a question, I've got the data that will support my answer. And so if you're going to be in a group, we would love for you to be in Iron Sharpens Iron. But if you're going to be in a different group, just make certain that you're surrounding yourself with competent, capable people that align with your worldview, that align with your core values, because otherwise you're not going to take advice from them. And so you've got to do your homework and your due diligence on your end, and then be willing to be transparent, vulnerable, and authentic. And then your life will amazingly change. Well, I love you went to transparent, vulnerable, and authentic. There's so many words of wisdom here. So I got a couple questions. I'm gonna, and then you can pick which one you want to answer first, right? I am interested in how do you place people into those groups, because you have to get to know each other, right? But maybe a more important question is what you just went to. I see your core values. Sugar prepared me with a beautiful list here. Let's talk about your 5 core values. Yeah. And then I want to address them with what I call the 5 dynamics of a glad to be here debrief, and we'll see how these connect. But let's go there, and then we'll get back to your mastermind. Okay, let's talk about probably the most important thing that you could possibly do, and that's create your own core values. If you
Beautiful.
don't have those, like a lot of people say character and integrity, and it's like, well, that's just to be a human being. We need those qualities, right? So you've got to see what's unique to you. What is it that you live your life by? What are the principles that you live your life by? Well, for me, I say this with great humility. We've owned 14 businesses over the course of 44 years. Okay.
Wow.
God's been really good to us. So I'm grateful for it. So I don't say that boastfully. I say that to tell you why we have the core values. My number one core value is relationships matter most. It doesn't matter to me if I'm providing a service or if it's a widget I'm selling you. You, the individual, you matter most. And I'm going to figure out any and every way that we can. Here's what we tell people that join our mastermind group. You get in and you pay me the money. And in 6 months, if you do the work and you tell me this is not any good, we give all your money back. Like, I don't want you to give me $1. We've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people go through our program over a 10-year period. I've given money back one time. And he didn't stay the 6 months. He stayed 2 months.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to argue with him, so I gave his money back. So what I'm saying is the reason I do that is because the relationship matters most. Second core value, no excuses. Like, I hate excuses. Like, just own it. Just man up and say, you know, everybody says, well, it's the way I was raised, or my daddy didn't show me any affection, or my mama wouldn't take me here, or, you know, the school bus was driving slow and I'm late. Just, man, save that. Like, don't even say that. Go, you know what? I didn't leave on time. That's why I'm late. Yep. And I didn't get that done because I'm too dadgum lazy to do it. Like, own it. Just own what it is. And so no excuses. The third thing is make it amazing. Real quick,
I know I keep interrupting you because I got too many cool stories.
Hey, it's your show. You can
no. In the Naval Academy, the first thing they teach you, one of the first things when you go there is you only have 3 responses to an upper class. This is in plebe summer, right? It's yes, sir, no, sir, no excuse, sir.
There you go.
And isn't that cool? It's either, yep, I understand, no, or no excuse. And I don't want to hear, just like you said,
save it.
Yeah. Unless they ask you, if they say, you know, okay, well, let's Mr. Dumb John, sometimes they call you, whatever, you know, okay, well, let's unpack it. But I love that mentality, you know, own your outcome, own yourself, personal responsibility. So keep going. We got the first 2 relationships.
So
no excuses.
So make it amazing.
Oh,
it's
nice.
like, I hate it when people halfway do it. They're like, well, yeah, it could have been done better. That's good enough. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, everything we do may not be amazing to your standards, but it's as amazing as I know how to make it. Okay. Like, give it all you got. Squeeze every drop out. Don't leave anything. Leave it all out there on the field. Like, I mean, my mom had a saying when I was a kid: can't, couldn't do it, and could did it all. And she said, if you say you can't, you won't. And you got to get out there and you got to do it, man. I mean, listen, leave it all out there. Right.
Wait, that's your mom. I want to go back to your mom. She said, what now? Can't,
couldn't do it, and could did it all. You got to have a positive mindset. Listen, I named it. That's the first chapter in my book, View from the Top. That's the title of the first chapter. So make it amazing. Do as best as you can, right? Learn, try, get in there, make it amazing.
Beautiful.
The fourth one is everything is figureoutable. And if you don't believe that's a word, look it up. It's a word. Okay. My team knows not to tell me we can't do it. I'm like, we figured out. Everything's figureoutable. It may not look exactly like you had originally planned, but we can figure it out. And then finally, my 5th core value is truth before opinion. And let me tell you what I mean by that.
Please.
Excuse me. I got a little cough here. It's the weather in Nashville, Tennessee is attacking my throat.
You got some water? Get some water.
I got some right here. Yeah, I keep drinking it. So truth before opinion. I'm a Christ follower. And
beautiful. So I could tell that right at the beginning. And that's a beautiful thing, my man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So for me, truth is found in God's word. So I run it through those 66 books first. That's where I find my identity. I don't find my identity in titles. I don't find my identity in possessions. I find my identity in Christ. Once we run it through those 66 books, that's truth for me. Then your opinion matters. Okay. So it's truth before opinion. So those are our 5 core values.
Whoa. okay, let's unpack those. First off, thank you for sharing those. I know that doesn't just happen in a day, right? You've unpacked that over a lifetime.
Yeah.
And now there's those solid pillars for you. Amazing, so many things. So I'll do a little share, and then we'll compare, right?
Sure.
So I'm writing a new book called The Glad to Be Here Mindset, and there's 4 key pillars or core values that I think align almost exactly with what you're saying, but let's just unpack them. So the first thing and I wake this every morning, I hit the knees, I pray, and I put these 4 principles into place. The first one is gratitude. I try to live my life with gratitude. And what does that mean? Gratitude to live life in all its fullness. And this came from the Bible. When they asked Jesus, what is your purpose? Why are you here? Do you remember what he said?
Go ahead. These are yours. These are not
Yeah, no,
mine.
I got it. Yeah, no, I'm with you. So he said, there's different places, but he said to give life in all its fullness. And when I read that, I went, whoa, that's cool. Because if Jesus's purpose is to give life in all its fullness, then it's my job to live life in all its fullness, right? And then I said, well, shoot, let's do both. So now I say to live and give life in all its fullness, right? To help others, right? So anyhow, but just this gratitude for each day, every moment. I actually have a trigger where I step out of bed with my left foot hitting the floor first. Because what that reminds myself to do, first off, it's awkward, is to say that today's not normal. Today's magical, right? And I like you're amazing, right? I mean, every day should be amazing, right? The next pillar.
Hold on, I got to interrupt you because what's fair for the goose is fair for the gander. So
I like it. I like it.
Seth Bueckley, I put a plug in here for Seth Bueckley. He wrote a book that I need to send you called Gratitude.
Please.
That's the name of the book. Yeah. And it is an unbelievable read. You will enjoy it. You remind me later. I'll send it to you.
Oh, please. No, I'd love that because there's such a depth to gratitude. Science is starting to prove. There's so much science behind why having a grateful state of mind, a positive state of mind can be so powerful in many things in our life, right? Especially when we're down, right? Which is hard. Second pillar is the 2, and that is you got to have direction. You got to have purpose, right? So this direction in life, to what? And on that is I have a learn, grow, give mantra. Every day I want to wake up, I want to learn, I want to grow, and I want to give. And what I realized is that 2 things. To me, the difference between learning and growing is the difference between knowledge and understanding. So there's lots of knowledge out there, but I want to grow. That means I got to understand something. That means I've got to actually know how to apply it and be willing to apply it, right? And then I realized I had the order wrong. Giving comes first. Right. I mean, we got to be able to give to receive. The third one is on the 2, and the 2 is this idea of glad to be, rather it's be. The next word is be. That's to be present. And we talked about, you mentioned that word earlier, right? To be absolutely present, like you and I right here, right?
This conversation.
And to be passionate about something. So why not live life in all its passions? And then the here is that idea of presence and making a difference in someone else's lives. So I love your 4 core value, 5. You have the 5 core values there. And I love the idea of relationships come first. Let me bounce this off you. 3 things that I've seen in every high performance team, and you've had multiple companies, you meet with multiple high performers, is number 1 is they connect. As I think about even you and I right here, what are we trying to do? Hopefully what the audience is doing is they connect, right? And you talked about those relationships matter. We got to build connections with people, right? Next thing is you got to get alignment, at least from a business standpoint. Are we aligned? Are we aligned spiritually? Are we aligned, business-wise? Bam. And then the third one is commitment. And I think what's beautiful about this is that's a choice. Right? Like you and I get to choose every morning, what level of commitment am I willing to bring to the table? So what's your thoughts on those?
2 or 3 things. 2 or 3 things that you've said that I want to break down for a second. As far as the commitment goes, Roy Vaden wrote another good book. He's a friend of mine here in Nashville, and it's called Procrastinate on Purpose. And in that book, he said,
wow. Like that
he said that we need to prioritize our priorities. And then there's not a such thing as work-life balance. He said, we need to be way out of balance in all the right places. And so you need to decide 4 or 5 areas that you're going to devote your time, your energy, your effort, and knock those out of the park. Don't let the shiny objects dissuade you from doing the right things. And so the second thing that you said that I think is one of the biggest problems that young couples are facing today is when they're together, they're not present.
Yeah.
They're thinking about
work. And that's my problem too. Even though I say I want to be that, I'm not good at it. Right. I mean, a lot of times I'm thinking and I interrupt too much. Like I just
right
did.
Here. This right here is that's one of the biggest distractors in the whole world is technology. It's good, right? It's awesome, but it can also take us away, and we need to be present. Okay. And I just want to tell the listeners that are listening right now, you need to set boundaries. You need to go on there and you need to say, hey, I'm willing to do X for this amount of time, and I'm going to set it aside. Enlist accountability, get somebody to walk with you, because the dopamine hits that technology is giving you has made it very addictive. And so it's ruining our kids. It's ruining our conversations. Robin and I go out to eat quite a bit because, there's nobody home but me and her. And everywhere we go, there's families sitting around the table at these restaurants, all on their devices. They're not even having conversations. And I just plead with you, if you're listening to me today, don't be a casualty, and don't be one of those persons that you're more interested in what's going on that phone than you are within the walls of your home. And so nobody can be those kids' dad but you. Nobody can be her husband but you. And I want to encourage you to set the boundaries and really focus and be present when you're present.
Man, thank you. Thank you, Big A. By the way, how do you get Big A? Where'd that come from?
Well, I'm 6'4", 235, 240. So I'm a pretty big guy, first of all. And when I was in probably the 4th grade, I was probably 6 foot tall. And Herb Berry, at the place I started working when I was a kid, looked at me one day and he goes, Big A. And it just stuck, and it's been with me my entire life. So did you
play sports?
I played a little bit of basketball, a little bit of baseball. They called me Lightning because I ran so long in the same spot. I mean, I've been thrown out from right field at first base. I'm really slow. So I'm not really athletic. I'm a good golfer. I can play golf. I can fish. Like, you don't want to fish against me. I've tournament fished for 35 years.
Okay.
But I'm so big, I'm pretty awkward and clumsy. I'd do good to touch the net, much less the rim. So,
okay, wait a minute. I think your new call sign is Lightning. That's Lightning. The one I want.
Right. Hey, the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me in baseball was I got thrown out from right field at first base, and I was like,
"That's pretty terrible. Hard to do."
It was terrible. Let's get on with the interview. You're going to keep me embarrassed.
I got you. Hey, I got a question, and it's going to tap your heart, but it's a while back when you mentioned, you hit somebody and you actually killed them at a pedestrian. What was that like? Yeah. And how did you not go to jail? I mean, what's going on in that process?
So this gentleman, I'll recount the story. So I'm driving 4-lane highway. There's a median, and I see this guy crossing 2 lanes that were going southbound, and I was going north. And he got to the median. I was driving a brand new 2001 Lincoln Navigator, big candy apple red one. Just got it, and I actually had just left my church on Wednesday mornings. We go there, 5 of us do. We meet with our pastor and we pray for our families, pray for our church. And we did that every Wednesday morning for years and years. And I was on my way from there to the office, and he paused in the middle of the road. And as soon as he paused, I thought, well, he's waiting on me to pass. So I sped back up 50, I guess, 55, 50, something like that. And as soon as I got to him, he took off running hard as he could go. There was a bus parked on the right-hand side of the road, not even at a bus station, a public bus. And he hit my left front quarter panel and spun him around. His head hit my mirror, and it spun him around again. And then he hit the left rear quarter panel and fell face down. And I immediately pulled over the side of the road, got out, called 911. They came. Let me take a drink, John. Hold on.
Yeah, please.
No matter how many times I tell this, it's still
Yeah.
it's somebody's dad, So we called 911. They came and they put him on a gurney and they put me in the back of a patrol car there. And he went around and talked to all the cars that had witnessed, the accident. And everybody said that guy ran out in front of me. I mean, I wasn't at fault. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I wasn't speeding. Thank God I wasn't on the phone. I was just driving. And it ended up, we found out he's 77 years old. Originally, he was from the Philippines, and he was a very good friend of my personal physician. My personal physician went to the family and said, hey, this is a good guy. It's a good family. And they said, we're not going to sue. We know it was his fault. He couldn't see good. And we warned him over and over not to travel alone, but he did. He wanted to travel, and I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And so what I learned out of that, the reason I say it was a paradigm shift, I'm kind of glad you brought me back here. You wouldn't have had me as your guest prior to that interview, quite honestly. I came from nothing, and I began to believe my own press clippings. We were successful early, and you take a young man with some resources and a schedule with no accountability, with no trusted advisors, and you can become very confident and overconfident. You can become arrogant, condescending. You start reading your own press, and then you can get in trouble. And that's what happened to me.
Yeah. And
God used that, I'm convinced, to humble me to a point to say, hey, you're not so big. You're not so powerful. And what I discovered is that I had focused my entire life up to that point in acquiring possessions. And it was about the big house, the fancy cars, the place on the beach. And what I realized was I had no significance. I had a lot of success, but nobody would have cared about that but my family. And I asked this question of myself: if I had been killed that day, what would my legacy have been? And here's what it would have been. It would have been, poor kid from Nashville, Tennessee, makes enough money to retire at age 27. And nobody cares.
Wow.
And man, it knocked me down. It was like, golly, that's not what I want to be remembered for. I want to be remembered for, I made a difference in John Foley's life as a result of being around me. I brought the nuggets. I brought the wisdom, the encouragement. I was there. I became his friend. We developed a relationship. We were able to share. We were able to encourage one another and hold each other up when we were tired. Like, I want to be remembered for that. And God flipped in my mind. It was a paradigm shift saying, hey, you need to live the rest of your life being significant. The success will come, but you need to live significant. And so now that's why we have Iron Sharpens Iron. That's why I'm trying to help other people become successful and significant simultaneously.
Well, I can feel it in you. I felt it from the very beginning. It's like you said, doing these interviews, you like to do interviews, but I know you have a purpose in them, right? You're not doing them just to do them, and you make a difference in people's lives, right?
It'd be a lot easier to be sitting down there in the Caribbean right now, to be honest with you. That's what my plans were.
Right.
Until these guys encouraged me to coach.
Well, and being a 35-year professional fisherman or whatever, you could be having a lot of fun down there, but it wouldn't be fulfilling, right? So what is significant? You started to answer it, and I really appreciate that, because I think this idea of how one defines significance, right? How do you do it?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Success is always historically about ourselves. Significance most of the time is about others.
Nice.
And so for me, it's just, now don't hear me wrong, because I hate it when people with money go, money's not important. I want to go, you're a liar. I mean, like, money is real important. You have to pay the mortgage, money becomes very important. You want to eat dinner, money becomes very important. I hate it when people say that. But what I don't want people to do is to make it their primary focus. If you will really set your sights on adding value, the money will come. Stop trying to make the sale and start trying to add value.
Yeah.
And I promise you, the sales will come. Listen, that natural reciprocity, when you give and you give and you give, and then people naturally want to give back. Listen, I have so many people trying to introduce me to people now because I'm constantly connecting people all the time.
Right.
Well, there was a guy, I would call his name, and most people would know who he was, made an application to join our mastermind. And I got on the phone with him like I do every participant. Every person that fills out an application, I get on the phone with for 40, 45 minutes and we talk. And he's telling me all the businesses he's owned, how much money he's made, who he knows, on and on and on. Then he wanted to know the average income of the people that was going to be in the groups and who he could find and get to know as a result of being in the groups, and on and on and on. So he gets through talking. I said, "You finished?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "You can't join our group." And he's like, "What?" He knew he was a shoe-in, And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "I probably shouldn't say." He goes, No. Tell me, what is it? And I said, "Well, you don't know me well." And he goes, "No." I said, "I'm pretty straightforward." And he goes, "No, give it to me." I said, "You're the most arrogant, condescending guy I've ever interviewed." And I said, "You not one time said, I can bring this value. I can encourage others. I can make introductions to these people. It's all about you." And that's not what our organization is about. Our organization is about givers, not takers.
Wow.
And that's how we add significance to the lives of other people. Now, as a result of that, we have people literally all over the world participating. New businesses are being formed. They're going to heights they've never been before. They're making more money than they've ever made. Their life is better at home. They've got boundaries. They're present when they're present. I mean, we teach this stuff. It's personal, professional, and spiritual, all three legs of the stool. Because if something's missing, you're still going to go home a loser. And we don't want guys to do that. I can teach you to make money. It's not hard to make money. What's hard is prioritizing everything and keeping everything going equally, right? Your family, your spirituality, your profession. That takes effort, that takes work, and it takes accountability. And that's why I surround myself with competent people so that one leg of the stool is not missing.
Oh, do that again. What do you mean? The reason you surround yourself with competent people?
Yeah, because I have blind spots and I have pride and I have arrogance. And if someone's not there to throw the flag on me,
right,
and I'm left to my own selfish ways, I'm able to go off in the ditch. But when you have these boundaries, and for me, that's trusted advisors, and I subject myself to their scrutiny. I'm like, "Hey, tell me, how do you see me treating Robin? Do you see me going home on time? Am I saving appropriately? Am I investing appropriately? Do you hear the language coming out of my mouth that would be pleasing regardless of who was around? Are you the same person here in this conversation as you are the next?" Because if you're not, that's an exhausting life. I don't want to live that way. I want to be the same person in front of my grandkids, in front of John Foley, or in front of Sugar, or whoever I'm with.
right.
I want to be the same guy. And I think if we do that, then we add significance to the lives of other people because they know they can count on you. They know they can depend on you. And so if we get our focus outward instead of inward, we can live that life.
Purpose higher than self. I love that. Hey, you mentioned earlier, and let's dive into it. There is no such thing as balance, right? In fact, I think you had a stronger way to say that. And then you said 4 or 5 things. So what are the 4 or 5 things that you care about?
I think it's different for everybody, but for me, as I've already talked about most of this, Christ is first and foremost. And I allocate and dedicate time to personal development as it relates to scripture. Every morning is spent through meditation, through prayer, through listening to praise and worship music, reading good content, filling my mind with very positive things. I've been doing that for decades. Wow. It's just the thing that I've got to do. I just can't get up and go out and start the day. I got to get focused.
Right.
That's my number one priority above everything. The next thing is my wife. And Robin and I align. Now, don't hear me wrong. We don't agree on everything. We're 2 different people, right? But we stand in there and fuss it out until we get to a mutual understanding. I'm not going to do anything she doesn't want me to do. I respect her. I wouldn't be married to her for 43 years, right? She's the mother of my children and the grandmother of my grandchildren, and I respect her above all. If my wife were to walk in here right now during this interview, you would just have to wait a minute because she has priority. Then my 2 daughters, and then my grandkids, and then my business.
Yeah.
And those are the orders that I live things by. And then obviously I have a profession, but there's strong boundaries even around that. I have office hours. I have times that I'm willing to be off the grid. I took off last November for the month. I unplugged completely, and October. So I took off a lot of the October, but primarily all of November, all of December. I got offline, no social media, no emails. My assistants took care of all that. And I took my wife and we traveled and I hung out and I re-energized, and I'm ready to go again. And so, yeah, I think we've just got to build our life and then build the things that help support that around it. So really, here's what the truth is. Let me just get out of the truth. We can say whatever we want, but your actions are screaming loudly. You can say, my family is the most important thing. People listening to me right now are saying, oh yeah, my family. And you spend 14 hours a day at the office. Yeah. You're missing your little girl's piano recital. Your little boy wants to pitch baseball and you get home after dark. I'm touching some nerves right now and I'm sorry, but it's true. And you travel out of town, you're missing big opportunities to be there for birthdays, graduation, important things to your kids. They may not be important to you, but you can't recover that. Listen, you don't get a second go over raising those kids. You get one shot. You get one go through, and you better be prioritizing those things, because here's what's going to happen. Let me just tell you, I'm not the prophet nor the son of one, but here's what's going to happen. You're going to end up being successful at work, and you're going to come home with a pocket full of money to a house full of strangers. And your kids are going to go away to college, and then they're not going to come back. And you're going to be like, hey, Billy, I'd like to go to lunch. Sorry, Dad, I'm busy. And then you're going to have strained that relationship to a point that there's nothing there. And you're going to be a rich old guy that has no relationships. And I want to encourage you strongly today to get off this interview, go home and sit down with your spouse or sit down by yourself, and you figure out what's important to you and you allocate the appropriate time. You know what? Go ask your family, are you spending an appropriate time? I do that every year with my kids. I say, hey, listen, forget I'm your dad. You tell me how I can serve you better. You're not in trouble. We're not going to do anything, but I want to know. They'll tell you. If you ask them honestly, they'll tell you. And I'm telling you, it was life-changing to me to ask those questions to the people that it matters the most. When you start doing those things, then you can tell me that your family matters the most.
Right. Wow. You know, and thank you, by the way, for challenging myself and the listeners to actually go do that right away, right? To go do that right away. You have some life mantras, at least Sugar found a couple. What are there some life mantras or scripture that you live your life by, that, you know, you just go, this means something to me? What would they be?
Yeah, you know, all these things that we've talked about, quite honestly, there's not one specific thing. A couple of the mantras that I have are, the first one is my life mantra is can't, couldn't do it, and could, did it all. I live with a growth mindset, very positive, not to be ever arrogant. But I'm like, yeah, I can do it. What is it? I'll figure it out. Like, we'll figure it out. I don't know right now, I maybe not can do it, but I'll spend the time. I'll do the reps. I'll do whatever it takes to figure it out. Like, I'm not lazy. I'm consistent. And that's the reason our businesses have been successful over the years, is because even when I don't feel like it, I do it. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter if I feel like it or not. If you need to do it, you've got to do it in order to be successful. I coach people all the time and they say, yeah, I tried that for 6 weeks. I didn't get any return. I'm like, I wear the same shirt for 6 weeks. Like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, you got to do this over and over and over. And then you got to get up tomorrow and you got to do it again. You have got to stay with this. That's the mindset that I was around with the Eagles for a dozen years. This mindset that I'm talking about, these guys were like, hey, sick days, like, what does that even mean? Like, I don't even know what a sick day means. Like, we're going to get this thing done. And you go in and work, and you look up one day and you go, man, there's some fruits to my labor here. The other thing I live by completely is people are afraid of everything, John. I don't know what they're so afraid of. They're afraid that if I do this and it doesn't work, then the neighbor's going to say, John tried this and it didn't work. Well, first of all, John or me are not that popular. People are not sitting around the dinner table talking about our success or failure. And so I just want to tell you, it's holding you back right now. And I say fear missing an opportunity more than you fear failure, because you're never, ever going to be successful if you don't go out there and try. And where there is great risk, there's great rewards. Yeah. And if you want to live mediocrity, then stay right there in the middle. But my mom had a saying for that too. I brought home a C one time on my report card. She said, never again. I said, what do you mean? She goes, you're capable of doing better and you can. Yeah. I said, Mom, it's a C. It's average. She goes, you know what average means? And I said, what? She goes, you're just as close to the bottom as you are the top.
Wow.
And I said, no, you're right. I never brought home another suit. And
Wow.
I'm just telling you, if you start adopting this mindset that you can figure it out, make it amazing, no excuses, fear missing an opportunity more than you fear failure. It's like, listen, you know what people are going to say? Hey, did you hear John's business failed? Yeah. Hey, pass the potatoes. That's about the extent of the conversation. Yet we let it paralyze us. We're sitting at home afraid. You need to be straight. You need to be afraid all the time. You need to be trying things and stretching all the time. You need to be a nervous wreck. Like, I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to try. Listen, the answer is always no, unless you ask. Always.
Nice. Wow. Your mom was so wise.
Yeah,
I mean,
my mom's a rock star. We built her a house on our property. She's 88 years old this weekend, and she's in great health, and I'm so blessed to still have her. Lost my dad back in 06.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what was your family upbringing like? I mean, what
we were broker than a convict. We didn't have any money. We lived in a 600 square foot house. There were 4 kids, 2 adults. My dad was a general contractor. That sounds really lavish, but he's the guy that dug the footing with a shovel and dug the water line with a shovel, and he built the wood with a hammer. They didn't even know what a nail gun was. My dad was much of a man. Physically, he was much of a man. And I'll tell you 2 little quick stories that gave me this inspiration. When I was 7 years old, I watched my dad sweep the snow off of a roof here in Nashville where he could re-roof the house to get money for us to eat. And I thought, I don't want to work that hard. Like, I want to make more money than that. Like, we went bankrupt. We lost everything, had to move in with our cousin. My mom would put canned goods in the pantry and nail a board over it during the summer so we'd have something to eat in the winter. Now, I'm not trying to get pity from anybody. I'm just trying to say, I know all about difficulties. And when I went in business for myself at 18 years old, people said, you can't go in business for yourself. And I'm like, well, stand right over there and watch, because I'm fixing to do something. I'm fixing to make something happen. And I found 2 guys with money and went to them and made a proposal. They said, how old are you? So I'm 18. They said, we've never had anybody 18 approach us. And I said, well, I don't even know what to say, but are you interested in this deal? And they started checking on me. Same way in school. I wanted to get out of school early, and the guidance counselor said it can't be done. I said, we'll figure out something. Well, we did. I had enough credits at the beginning of my junior year in high school to graduate. And I was like, we can figure it out if we want to do it. See, I just don't take no for an answer. No means no for this minute. It don't mean no again tomorrow. Exactly. And so when we start adopting this mindset, you're going to wake up one day and stuff's going to start happening for you. Quit being a victim. Like, I hate victim mentality. Go out and make your own way. My dad didn't have any money. I didn't have a silver spoon, and I made it. You can make it too. If you're listening to my voice and you got a heartbeat and a pulse, you can fog a mirror. You can be successful if you want to be. You've just got to lay out these principles like John and I are telling you today. Have these pillars, have a filter, have core values, have a mission statement, and get off the couch and quit playing video games and get out there and get to work. And you too can be very successful.
How do you, I love that, because I believe in that too. And how do you deal with, or have you had to coach people who maybe are depressed? Let's say that there's depression in their family. Yeah, well, sure. And while this sounds great to us, they don't take it that way. How do you
I agree with you 100%. Thank you for saying that. There's medical conditions, right? We have chemical imbalances, and we have situations that are happen to us, If you can have a choice, right? So let me say it that way. All those things apply. If you can't, if you're physically impaired, if you've got a chemical that's out of balance, like I'm sorry, I get it. I understand that. I sympathize with that, right? I totally get that. Just don't use that as an excuse. If that's what it is, that's what it is. Get help, get medication, get treated, right? But if you're just sitting there and you've got a choice and you can do better, man, that's the people I'm talking to.
I love it. Hey, that makes me think of a word, compassion, which is a very powerful word. How do you define compassion? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things. You can have compassion and you can have empathy. Right. Empathy means you feel sorry for somebody. Compassion means you're doing something about it. I love it. So, yeah, I think that you can sit here and have empathy all day long, but when you have compassion for somebody, you're going to act.
Yeah. That was so clear. I actually was at a dinner with the translator for the Dalai Lama, and he made the same distinction that you just made. He said, empathy means you feel, right? You can feel somebody else, but compassion, well, here's what he said. He said, compassion always involves empathy, but it's action. It must take action. And
you can feel sorry for somebody that's broke, but you really care when you give them $1.
Exactly. Or give them advice like what you're doing.
Or work or whatever. Right. Yeah. Get
way
involved.
Better.
Get involved.
And then the wisdom, and here's what we're starting to wrap up here, because I could talk to you forever, but I'm going to respect your time. But wisdom, how do you define wisdom? And what does it mean in your life?
Yeah. You can have knowledge, and that means you know about something. And you can have wisdom, and it means you've probably been through that process. And that's what I do, is I take the wisdom of all the mistakes that I've had over the course of my life, and I help you dodge the landmines. We had a young guy on our mastermind group recently, and he'd been married 5 years, and he came to the group and he said, having this problem with my wife, and I'm going to go home tonight, and this is exactly what I'm going to tell her. And he laid it all out. And he said, Big A, what do you think? And I said, I'll tell you exactly what I think. You're going to find your butt on the couch tonight. That's what's going to happen to you. He said, what do you mean? I said, you can't do that. I said, I've been married 43 years. Let me tell you what you need to do. Well, see, that's wisdom. I was able to walk him through a process. We had another guy recently that owns a very large company, and he hired me to be his coach. And he said, I'm going to buy my 2 partners out. And he goes, this is the presentation. And he told me what the presentation was. And he said during the presentation, he said, I'm going to tell the partner that he's just an idiot if he doesn't take this. And I said, well, this guy's got a lot of money, and you're not going to accomplish your goal. He said, what would you suggest? I said, you need to go to him and thank him for helping build the company. You need to thank him for all the knowledge and the experience and the wisdom that he's brought. And you need to get him in a posture that he is grateful for you coming to him and saying, listen, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have grown this business to the heights that it's at. And I want to do something that is going to radically change the dynamics for my family. And I would love to have your help. And this is what I'm proposing. And if you could help me with that, I would be grateful. And the guy did it. Wow. And that guy called me that night on the phone. He said, Big A, he said, you saved me $500,000 today. He said, if I had done it the other way, I can see he would have backed in a corner. He would have defended his character. He would have defended his honor, and he would have told me to hit the door. Yep. And see, for me, that's the difference in knowledge and wisdom.
Beautiful. I love that you back it up with stories, because that's what people remember. Hey, how can people get a hold of you? Because I'm excited. I'd like to learn more about becoming part of your mastermind. How can others do that?
I appreciate that. The easiest way to contact us is to go to viewfromthetop.com. All of our social media platforms are there. The other thing is listening to our podcast, View from the Top. So wherever you subscribe to podcast, we interview a lot of really cool people like John Foley. And so,
hey, I'd be honored any moment.
Yeah.
You just let me know.
Well, we're going to do a swap. So we'll get you on the podcast, and I would love to have you there. But yeah, reach out to us. There's an application there to join our mastermind. There's no obligation to fill out the application. So you fill out the application. We have a 45-minute discussion. We find out where you're at, if you're a good fit for us, if we're a good fit for you. There's never any high pressure. I don't believe in that, because if you're meant to be in our group, you'll be in our group. But we want to be sure that we can add value, and we'll just have an honest, open dialogue, have a conversation. And if I can't help you, then we'll send you on your way and point you in a direction that will be helpful to you. Our objective and goal always is to add value and point you in the right direction. So reach out to us, viewfromthetop.com.
Wow. Beautiful, Big A. You've really shared a lot of great wisdom and stories. I know I've learned a lot. I'd like to end on 2 questions. And one is, it's the classic question that if you were to pass away tomorrow, right? What is it that you want to leave behind for the people who love you, or really this world? Kind of that deep question about purpose. What can you share with me and our audience right now?
Yeah, I think it's 2 simple things, and I'll summarize it. We've talked about it in the interview, but it's something that I think is invaluable to all of us, is you have to adjust your mindset. That's the only thing you're in complete control over, is how you react. And I would just suggest that you adopt my mantra: can't, couldn't do it, and could did it all. And then fear missing an opportunity more than you fear failure. And I think if you adopt those two principles, you can go out there and have far greater success than you ever imagined or hoped for. And you can live a very satisfying, fulfilling life that's very successful financially, simultaneously being significant. So just adopt those principles and go change your life.
Wow. Very powerful. So clear. If you were, I like to think of people as angels because I believe they're here to help us, right? And so if you were an angel, or you are an angel, actually, by the way, I see it, and you can't fake it. You look like you're faking it, but you can't. Right?
A little devil's what my wife says.
Exactly. And that's because she sees you, right?
Yeah.
She sees you. But if you were an angel, you are an angel. What would an angel say to me right now? What do I need to hear from you, from an angel? So actually, let it come through you. What would you want to share with me right now?
Yeah, I would say to continue trying to be a faith-forward, family-first thought leader, sharing the wisdom and the experience that you have, void of any filter. So I think that people need to hear truth because they're starving to death for authenticity. And if you continue to do that, you'll make a huge difference.
Wow. Thank you. That's a blessing. That's a prayer. So thank you for that. I want to end with a glad to be here. Share out. I'll go first. You get to end the whole podcast. I just want to say thank you. You know, what glad to be here means to me is lots of things, right? But for today, what it means is just thank you for your time, Big A, but also thank you for your wisdom. You know, thank you for your commitment to others. Thank you for not retiring and going fishing, but actually making these masterminds meaningful for others. And thank you for taking care of the priorities that you outlined. You are inspiration. You're a beacon of light. And thanks for being on the podcast. I'm just glad to be here with you right now. Over to you.
Thank you. John, I'm glad to be here as well, buddy, because I can't think of a better place or a better use of our time to be able to stand here as senior adult men like you and I both, much life experience, a lot of family experience, professional experience, and sharing a few nuggets of wisdom, hopefully that people will take and make action to, because if you hear it and you don't act on it, it's useless and there's no point for you even to have heard it. So I would just implore you today to go out and take action on the things that we've shared with you.
Beautiful. Big A, everybody, high performance zone. You can feel it. You can see it in this man. Please look him up. And of all things, let's all take action. Let's be that compassionate, wise voice out there. So thank you, Big A. Glad to be here.
Thank you. We'll see you, buddy.